you. All right, guys. So here we are. We're on step 1 tonight, right? Are you guys with me?
Yes.
You guys remember last week?
Yes.
Yep. I gotta remind you that the power from the knowledge comes from the application. If I'm not retaining it, then I surely don't know how to apply it. So, being as though the first 51 pages of the big book is designed for you to diagnose yourself, the first thing we've went over so far was we went over the doctor's opinion. What does the doctor say? Who can tell me?
We have an allergy.
We have an allergy. We have an abnormal reaction, right? We get an allergic reaction. I have a mental obsession to physical allergy. The doctor says that you can't say it's of the mind without saying it's of the body. I can't say it's just of the body without mentioning the mind. I put a mind-altering substance into my system. I obsess over wanting to do it. The obsession is there. I'm not calling my sponsor once that kicks in. I'm using it when I do, and I ingest it, right? Or however I do it, right? I get a physical craving. That physical craving is more. I want more, I want more, I want more. It also said that in the doctor's opinion, which should be the first bit of hope for everyone, the doctor's series, we have an allergy. It interests us. As laymen, as our opinion of its soundness may of course mean little, but as ex-problem drinkers, it explains many things for which I can't otherwise account for. So when we get sober and our family says, "What, dude, you stole my shit again?" Are you kidding me, dude? Right? You're still getting high in prison? Like, what is wrong with you? You just overdosed and now you're getting high? What is wrong with you? And we just sit there and we're like, shit, I don't know. Right? But that explains, right? Explains the things which we can otherwise account for, which is the allergic reaction called craving, right? They talked about making the supreme sacrifice rather than continue to fight. We went over this. I like to do a recap just so we can really, because remember, you got to diagnose yourself. That's the whole point of everything we've been doing that's leading up to step 1, is for you to look at this thing and say, I have to have this thing. I am one of them. I can relate to the mental obsession, physical allergy. I can relate to making the supreme sacrifice rather than continue to fight. I'll sacrifice my freedom, my health, my family, my kids, my everything I've ever owned. I'll sacrifice it all. And sometimes I want to commit suicide, right? And then it talked about the 5 different types of users. Who could tell me one of them?
Obsession.
Psychopaths are emotionally unstable. We're familiar with this type. They're always going on the wagon for keeps. They're over remorseful, make many resolutions, but never a decision. That's one. And you say, oh, I'm not a psychopath, but when I call my girl, my mom crying about how I don't want to live this life anymore, and I need help, and I need help, and then I get high again, we look like psychopaths. I hate to break it to you, brother. Then we talked about the ones who change their brand or environment, their drug. And then when we talked about the third type, who was unwilling to admit that he can't take a drink, right? When we talked about, a long period of sobriety, right? We think we can use after that or drink normally after that. Then the fifth type, able, intelligent, friendly people, the manic depressive type. So if you can relate to all 5 types of users, you can relate to the supreme sacrifice rather than continue to fight. You can relate to the mental obsession, the physical allergy. Well, shit. We might need to do something about this. I mean, that's up to you though. I mean, I'm here to help you guys. I'm here because I care. I was at soccer games all weekend long, drove straight here. I got my aunt and my uncle here. My aunt, this woman right here, wrote me for 7 years, every single week, never missed a week. Let's give her one. Come on. And I get to be present in their lives today. Instead of take, I get to contribute, and that's the miracle of recovery. Then we looked over at there is a solution, right? We looked at what that was. Right? We looked at comparing, because this is a disease, right? It's got some key components. It's progressive. It gets worse, never better. We're going to talk more about that today in step 1, right? Just like cancer, stage 1, 2, 3, 4, terminal. Same thing with addiction. Ultimately becomes terminal. Then we talked about why it doesn't get the same respect. Who can tell me why? Addiction doesn't get the same respect as cancer.
Because addiction also affects everyone around.
We annihilate. You're absolutely right. We annihilate all things worthwhile in life. It engulfs all whose life touch a sufferer. Brings misunderstanding, fierce resentment, financial insecurity, disgusted friends, warped lives, blameless children, sad wives, and anyone can increase the list. So when my girl finds out, oh, Jason, take it easy on him, he's got the disease of addiction, she's like, can't give a shit. Are you kidding me? Who cares?
He's afflicted.
Yeah, I got issues, right? She don't care about that, right? And so that's what we talked about. But then it also transitioned to why sponsorship works, because we all are the same. We all come from different places, but the facts is the same characteristics of our alcoholic mentality, which are character defects. We all got the same ones. And I can sit up here like I do. I share the book with you guys in my experience, and the majority of the time when I look around the room, you guys are going, dude, I did that shit too, right? You're not alone, dude, trust me, all right? And so that's the miracle of sponsorship. Then where do we go from there? The Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, we looked at that. Who could tell me why it's a thinking problem? Why it centers in our mind? Why it's a thinking problem?
It's the obsession of the mind.
It's obsession of the mind. You're right about that. It's a thinking problem, and it centers in our mind. You're absolutely right. But it's a thinking problem because every time I pick up, I think that the results will be different, right? I think that they will be. The only thing that my disease wants me to remember is 1997, sophomore year in high school when it was fun. That's it. Not the 20 years of pain. It doesn't want me to remember any of that. Right? It doesn't. It doesn't want me to remember the prison sentences and being dope sick and breaking the hearts of my family and my kids and everything. It doesn't want me to remember that. It doesn't want me to remember how good it feels to be sober. It doesn't want me to remember how good it feels to be present in the relationships in my life today. How good it feels to coach my daughter's soccer team. It doesn't want me to remember that, right? I forget it. And that's what we talked about as well. So that's why it centers in our mind, because I think I'll get different results, but I've collected evidence and data for the last 20 years, if you're anything like me, that shows me that it ain't ever going to be different. I never stop before I get dope sick. I never stop before I go back to prison. I never stop before I have to see my PO again. I never stop before I have to see my mom in the morning or a holiday, and I know I'm going to see the whole family. I'm just going to do a little bit. Just a little bit. How many people did that? Just a little bit. Yeah. How many times did you just do a little bit? Not very often, because we got a physical craving, the disease of more, right? And then ultimately, we'll fast forward a little bit for the sake of time. There's a lot that's going to be in this chapter. We're going to be going over step 1 today, but it talked about the very end of there is a solution, right? It talked about what the solution is, but just like everything in the book, it doesn't come right out and say it. Right? It'll give an experience of one of the first 100 members. This chapter we're going to go over today has 4 major points that it's going to make. Well, 4 major points that are followed by a story from the experience of one of the first 100 who have recovered. But it said that we experience a psychic change. We've been rocketed into a 4th dimension of existence, which I'd not even dreamed, right? 4 dimensions, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. We've been rocketed into a 4th dimension of existence, which we couldn't even dream, right? Just like it talked about at the end of the doctor's opinion. You guys should know this. My favorite line in the whole book, who knows what it is? Finest specimen of manhood as one could ever wish to meet. When we experience that solution, when we admit powerless and unmanageability in step 1, like we're going to talk about today, when I fully concede to my innermost self that I'm an alcoholic, when I do that, followed by coming to believe in step 2, which we'll go over next week, we agnostics, and I start to identify this power, this beginning belief, some morals, some values, some spiritual characteristics that I want to live by, and I make a decision in step 3 to let my actions reflect it, the consistency followed by the rest of the steps creates a new identity, one I could be proud of. And I think the finest specimen of manhood would be God, right, to me, right? But I'm surely a hell of a lot better than I used to be, right? And it's constant, never-ending growth, guys. That's what we're looking to do. So we engage those 4 areas on a day-to-day basis. All right, any questions about any of that? I mean, what'd you guys have for dinner? And you guys all right? Did you guys have carne asada burritos around here, or what? You guys with me? Oh, okay, all right. Did they do meds early tonight? Huh? You guys good? Okay, all right, let's go. So we're going to be on page 30. All right, so we're going to talk about step 1. Now, I'll give you guys like some homework if you choose to do it. Like if I would absolutely, it wouldn't make me any happier than to be able to sponsor every single one of you guys in this room. But the facts are, is I don't have the time to do it. I'd love to, and I wouldn't give you the accurate time that you would need. I'll meet with you guys when I can. I'll come in early and do those things for you. I'll give you homework as we go through the rest of the way. And if you have all the homework done that we've done so far, and you can't find a sponsor anywhere else, and you want to do a 4th and a 5th step, then we'll do that and I'll sponsor you from there. So that's up to you, but I will give you some homework tonight. And when we look at the difference between powerless and unmanageability, if I ask you like I will at the end to give 5 experiences of powerless and 5 experiences of being unmanageable, the shit kind of rolls together, right? It's kind of hard to distinguish the difference between it. This is the easiest way that I could explain it for you. Powerless is internal, unmanageable is external. I mean, how many people couldn't keep a cell phone on for 30 days in a row in succession, right?
Come on.
If you know this, then you're definitely in the right place. How many people know what the double button means on the Empower? Oh yeah, you know, yeah. Double button, you hold that thing down when you ain't got any power, it'll keep the power on all night. If you know about the double button, brother, yeah, you're in the right place. It's good to see you too.
8 more licks on that double button.
Yeah. If I do it after 5, it'll stay on all night.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know that's right.
Come morning time, you better have that cat.
You better start hustling. Yeah, you better beat Walmart before asset protection gets there, player. Yeah, you know what it is. All right. So those are the things those are in manageability, right? I get gas 4 times a day and I put $3.73 in the gas tank every time. That's pretty unmanageable. I drive around with a car that has no insurance, no registration. They're trying to get repoed. I got to park at 4 streets and walk a mile to my house and hope they don't find it. Every morning I look out there, I say, oh shit, there it is. Got another day. That's unmanageable. The powerlessness is, I just want to go out tonight and have a couple drinks after work and I'm going home after that. It turns into more drinks, and it looks, by the looks of this room, it might turn into some Van Buren escapade for some of you guys. Am I right or am I wrong? Am I old school? Is that like QT on Northern now? Am I missing something here? Damn, I must have been out of the game for a while. Okay, all right, fair enough. But that's the powerless, right? It's wanting to be able to stop but can't. No control. Clinically, they say there's 3 questions, right? 3 questions if you can answer that says you're an alcoholic. Poor control over stopping when you want to, poor control over the amount you take when you use, and continued use despite negative consequences. So if you can check all 3 of those, if I was like some doctor or something, which I am not, that'd be like, oh dude, yeah, you're an addict, right? You gotta do something about that. Okay. So let's get into it. So we're on chapter 3, more about alcoholism. This is step 1. So when we read this in the beginning of every single meeting, right? But I don't think, maybe, hopefully you guys understand how powerful and true that it is, right? So most of us have been unwilling to admit that we're real alcoholics. No person likes to think that he's bodily or mentally different from his fellows. Therefore, it is not surprising that our drinking careers have been characterized by countless vain attempts to prove that we can get high or drunk like other people. The idea that somehow, someday, we'll be able to control and enjoy our drinking is the great obsession of every abnormal user, and the persistence of the illusion is astonishing that we will pursue it into the gates of insanity or death. That sums it up. It's an illusion. It's insanity. I'll never be able to control and enjoy it, but I'll continue to pursue the fact that I can. But I've collected data and evidence for 20 years that shows me that I can't. There was also a second obsession that came from there as a solution that we went over last week. Did anybody retain that? Goodness. Swing and a miss. The idea that somehow, someday I'll beat the game, but I often suspect I'm down for the count. So deep down in our heart, we know this ain't gonna end well. Right? That's the one obsession. But this is typically, anytime you ever refer to anybody, refers to it in any sort of meeting, this is the one they're going to be referring to. Okay. So we learned that we had to circle the word fully, concede to our innermost self that we're alcoholics. This is the first step of recovery. Fully. This is the step they're going to tell you, you got to get 100%. Right? If you think there's another way, you got to try to pursue that. If you think this is the last house on the block, if you still think there's another house, another avenue, another way, and only then will you be able to fully concede when you've tried everything else. We don't come when we're on a winning streak, that's a fact. It's not like, hey, my life is so good today, I got money in the bank, dude, me and my girl were solid. I think I'm gonna go to a meeting. I'm gonna check into Crossroads for 45 days. Scope out the scene, pick up a couple extra tools because life's so good. We come when we're just beat down, the gift of pain and desperation like we've talked about. It says most alcoholics have to be pretty badly mangled before they commence to solve their problems. Damn, Luke, see that car wreck? Shit is mangled. That's pretty bad. That's pretty bad. All right. Reminds me of my DUI I got. Shit was mangled. Anyways, that was a side note. Write that down, brother. You got that? Okay, all right. Write that down. All right. The delusion that we're like other people. Look at the words. Delusion, illusions, insanity, obsessions. The delusion that we're like other people or presently maybe has to be smashed. We alcoholics are men and women who've lost the ability to control our drinking. We know that no real alcoholic ever recovers control. All of us felt at times we were regaining control, but such intervals, usually brief, were inevitably followed by still less control, which led in time to pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization. So if I've collected data and evidence that shows me every time I go back out there and try to pursue the fact that I can control and enjoy it, what always ends up happening is pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization. That's pretty bad. I bet if anyone said anything around here to each other, it'd be like, dude, you're pitiful. I'd be salty about that. I'd be really mad about that. I'd have to really practice some principles. Maybe I have to call my sponsor. All right? So, the morals, the values, the things we've talked about, love being an action word. If I asked every single person here if they love their mom, their kids, in their midst of their addiction, I mean, God damn, you mean it. But the facts are your actions represent something totally different. right? And when we get sober, we feel that again. We don't like the way that feels, so we use again. Don't think, don't feel, don't care. Drugs work, temporary solution, followed by more hurt of the loved ones, and it makes it seem like every single time we get sober, it just hurts even more and hurts even more, and that's why it seems like we're so far down in a hole that we can't get out of it. But that's what the fellowship's for. They jump down in that hole and they help you carry you out. It's a pay-it-forward program, man. We love you till you can love yourself. That's what this thing's all about. I'm here today because I love you guys, and I want to be a part of your recovery. Because people took out the time to be part of my recovery. Jay came into prison. That's where I met him. Helped me. Service commitments. Immediately, first day out. He's a friend. All these people were put in my life, I believe, by God. But when I do my part through awareness, I get to see those things. So we do this thing together. Okay. We are convinced that alcoholics of our type are in the grip of progressive illness. Over any considerable period, they get worse, never better. So off to the side, I want you to write progressive disease, aggressive recovery. So if I believe I'm in the midst of a progressive illness, that it's continuing to manifest itself and get worse, never better, then that tells me I have to have an extremely aggressive recovery. I have to be willing to go to far greater lengths than I've ever went for anything to get and obtain drugs. And I'm looking around this room, and I think you guys have went some pretty far. I think it's safe to say if you're anything like me, you can wake up with no shoes, no phone, no money, and you're getting high 3 times a day, minimum, every day. Can you relate to that? Okay, you're in the right place. Alright, okay. We are like men who have lost their legs and never grow new ones. Neither does there appear to be any kind of treatment which makes alcoholics of our kind like other men. We've tried every imaginable remedy. In some instances, there's been brief recovery followed always by still worse relapse. Physicians who are familiar with alcoholism agree there's no such thing as making a normal drinker out of an alcoholic. Science may one day accomplish it, but hasn't done so yet. Despite many can say, many who are real alcoholics are not going to believe in that class. Pay attention. By every form of self-deception, experimentation, they'll try to prove themselves exceptions to the rule, therefore non-alcoholic. If anyone who's showing the inability to control his drinking can do the right about face and drink like a gentleman, our hats are off to him. Heavens knows we've tried long and hard enough to drink like other people. So off to the side of that paragraph, I want you to write no envy. So when I see people, when I see my wife have a glass of wine and not even finish it and go to bed, when I see people who can go out to the bar and have a beer and watch a football game, right? When I see people who can control, I can't envy that. I just have to tip the cap because I know that ain't me. Hey, good for you, brother. Good for you. Good for you. But I can't do it, right? No envy. We can't envy that. So next to this next paragraph, I want you guys to write try everything first, right? Again, we got to try everything we can before we're willing, honest, and open-minded to really go through with this thing and fully concede like step 1's talking about, okay? So here are some of the things we got to try. Drinking beer only, limiting number of drinks, never drinking alone, never drinking in the morning, drinking only at home, never having it in the house, never drinking during business hours, drinking only at parties, switching from scotch to brandy, drinking only natural wines, agreeing to resign if ever drunk on the job, taking a trip, not taking a trip, swearing off forever, taking more physical exercise, reading inspirational books, going to health farms, sanitariums, accepting voluntary commitment to asylums. We can increase the list ad infinitum, right? We got to try everything, dude, and once we've tried everything, then we're like, shit, I got everything to gain, nothing to lose from it. What do I got to do? Great question. I'm glad you asked. Get a sponsor. Get a sponsor, man. Okay. So we don't like to pronounce it. So they used to do this back in the day. They'd be like, all right, bro, you don't think you're one of us? Go try some controlled drinking, right? Go ahead and test that theory. I would never, the way that fentanyl's killing everyone, I would never suggest that to anyone today. But back in the day, they used to. We don't like to pronounce any individual an alcoholic, but you can quickly diagnose yourself. Step over to the nearest bar room, try some controlled drinking. Try to drink and stop abruptly. Try it more than once. It will not take you long for you to decide if you're honest with yourself. It may be worth a bad case of the jitters to get a full knowledge of your condition. Though there's no way of proving it, we believe that early in our drinking careers, most of us could have stopped drinking, but the difficulty is few alcoholics have enough desire to stop while there is yet time. We have heard a few instances where people who show definite signs of addiction were able to stop for a long period because an overpowering desire to do so. Here's one. So like I said in the beginning, there's going to be 4 major stories we're going to go over tonight. So if you want to, to know the program is to know the book. I love when people want to, show me their program. The only thing you need to show me is your book, and then I'll really know what type of program you're working, because the program's in the book. It's not, meetings will not keep you sober, maybe for an hour, but I think there's a bathroom around here, so it might be a little touch and go. I don't know about you, but the fellowship plays its role, but the program is this thing. Like we talked about, there's a solution, being members of a shipwreck, right? We're out there stranded, we're going to survive a shipwreck together, right? And we become family after that. That's what the fellowship, laughter and love and support and honesty and accountability. But the program is right here in this thing. You guys should read it. It's pretty cool. There's some stories in the back of the book. They're pretty cool too. I don't know, maybe you guys will check it out. I don't know. Maybe you already are, and I hope you are. All right. So this story is about it being progressive, okay? So this would be the progressiveness, if you will, story. Okay. A man of 30 was doing a great deal of spree drinking. He was very nervous in the morning after these bouts, quieted himself with more liquor. He was ambitious to succeed in business, but saw he would get nowhere if he drank at all. He made up his mind that until he'd been successful in business and retired, he would not touch another drop. Exceptional man, remained bone dry for 25 years. He retired at the age of 55 after a successful and happy business career. Underline the next sentence. Then he fell victim to a belief which practically every alcoholic has, that his long period of sobriety and self-discipline qualified him to get high like other men. I did my first prison sentence in 2006. Didn't use that all in prison that whole entire time. Got out, was sober. Didn't change anything. White knuckling it, however you want to call it, right? Got off probation. We're talking 4.5 years, completely sober, abstinent, white, whatever you choose to call it. Then I fell victim to this belief and I went to Vegas for one night. It was Halloween, to celebrate getting off probation with my best friend who now has 10 years of recovery through the 12-step program. I got to have a dinner with my two best friends from grade school, and both of them have 10 years of recovery, and I was coming up on 4 years. It was the first time, God knows how long, since 7th grade, when we were all sitting there sober, dude, and it was a cool experience, right? But I went to Vegas for one night. It was Halloween, dressed up as a ShamWow guy. My friend was dressed up as Dog the Bounty Hunter, right? One night, thought I could drink, woke up, blacked out, right? Like the Hangover, right? No Tiger, no Mike Tyson, nothing cool in the room, right? Just me on the floor, passed out. Same old, man. And that started the cycle. Fall victim to a belief which practically everybody has. Okay. Out came his carpet slippers in a bottle. In 2 months he was in a hospital, puzzled and humiliated. He tried to regulate his drinking for a while, making several trips to the hospital in the meantime. Then gathering all his forces, he attempted to stop altogether, found he could not. Every means of solving his problem which money can buy was at his disposal. Every attempt failed. Though a robust man at retirement, he went to pieces quickly and was dead within 4 years. This case contains a powerful lesson. Most of us believe if we remain sober for a long stretch, we could thereafter drink normally. So that's the progression of the disease. You could have it, the disease is getting worse. You could have periods of recovery, sobriety, any of those things. And when you go back out and test that theory, dude, this dude's dead in 4 years, right? 25 years, bone dry. Had everything you want, successful business, everything. And there he was dead. That's the progressiveness of our illness, right? I'm homeless quicker every time. I go back to prison quicker every time. I violate probation quicker every time. I lose the trust of my family every time. Mom changed the locks every time. Quicker, quicker, quicker. I'm strung out quicker. Tolerance is quicker. I'm broke quicker. It's because of the disease. It's a hard, quick fall. Every single time it gets a little bit quicker and a little bit harder because it's progressive. Okay. But here's a man at 55 years who found he was just where he left off at 30. We have seen the truth demonstrated again and again. Once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. If we're planning to stop drinking, there must be, circle, no reservation of any kind, nor any lurking notion that someday we'll be immune to drugs and alcohol. Reservations, dude, huge, critical. Reservations are this, right? Reservations are that one phone number. Sometimes they can be real subtle. That one phone number I keep in my phone, one dope man, I still got his number just in case, because in my mind I'm justifying it by saying one day I'm going to invite him to a meeting. I'm going to help this man, right? That one friend on Facebook, right? And then the one day that I'm not spiritually fit, I'm experiencing some negative consequences in my life, and all of a sudden I'm like, what's up? Just checking on you, bro. What's up? Or I just happen to roll through the neighborhoods I used to hang out and just want to see who's out front. I don't want to say nothing. I just want to cruise by. I don't want to show them how good I'm doing, right? Reservations could be a little bit deeper than that. It could be if I get married, I'm going to get drink. If I lose my mom, I'm going to drink. If I lose my dad, I'm going to drink. If my girl leaves me. I had a reservation when I was in prison. I was sober for the first 3 years totally before I had relapse, found recovery, right? I had a reservation. If I ever lost my visits, if my wife ever left me, I would use again. I lost my visits. She couldn't keep her hands off of me in visitation, right? I mean, she probably says it a little bit. It might have been the other way around. You were there. You were there. Yes, you were there, brother. But regardless, I had that reservation. I lost my visits. I felt those negative. I already had it set up, right? And then there it is. The door opens. All it takes is for us to not be spiritually fit, go through some things, man, and there it is, dude. We're jumping right in. It's so subtle, though, sometimes. So we have to make sure. I had a guy at my treatment center. He had a SIM card. He's from Nogales, right? You know, running people and stuff. You know how that goes. Nogales, shouldn't have to say anymore. How many people know about the McDonald's in Nogales? Oh, you guys are in the right place. It's good to see you guys. You guys are my people. All right. So he came to me after I went over this with him in group. I did our IOP, and he said, dude, I got a reservation. I got this SIM card, bro. It's a reservation, isn't it? I said, well, let's go burn that thing, man. We lit that thing up, dude. It felt good. He cried, dude, because it was just that last piece that he was holding on to. Okay. Young people may be encouraged by this man's experience to think they can stop as he did on their own willpower. We doubt if many of them can do it because no one will really want to stop, and hardly one of them, because the peculiar mental twist already acquired, will find he can win out. Several of our crowd, men of 30 or less, have been drinking only a few years, but they found themselves just as helpless as those who've been drinking 20 years. Underline next sentence. To be gravely effective, one does not necessarily have to drink a long time nor take some of the quantities that some of us have. There is no set amount. Some people can hold a job, and I hate functional. There's no such thing. I'm a functional alcoholic. Oh, really? Real functional. All right. Anyways, that's another time, another place. Right? But there's no set amount. Some people jump right into it. Some people are full-blown addiction right away. Some people have some successes over years. I had some successes. I had some times where I didn't use. I went to college. I did all these things. Right? I played soccer. All these things. Right? But it was still there. And then ultimately grabbed a hold of me. Okay. This is particularly true for potential female alcoholics. They often turn into the real thing and gone beyond recall in a few years. Certain drinkers who would be insulted if called alcoholics are astonished at their inability to stop. We who are familiar with the symptoms see large numbers of potential alcoholics among young people everywhere, but try to get them to see it. I would like to think that if I knew back in 1997, sophomore year in high school, when I was having fun, right, when I was experiencing minor consequences, I would like to think if I could foresee the next 20 years, I'm going to be 40 this year. High school was 20 years ago, right? I'd like to think that if I knew what was to come in the prison sentences and the heartbreak and the pain, the suffering, the humiliation, that I want to stop. But the problem is, I don't see the need for it yet. And another greater problem that we've already discussed is I might have already acquired that peculiar mental twist that I won't be able to win out on even if I wanted to. If anyone's questions whether he's entered this dangerous area, let him try leaving liquor alone for a year. If he's a real alcoholic, very far advanced, there's scant chance of his success. In the early days of our drinking, we occasionally remain sober for a year or more, becoming serious drinkers again later. Although you may be able to stop for a considerable period, you may yet be a potential alcoholic. We think few to whom this book will appeal can stay anything dry like a year. Some will be drunk the day after making their resolutions, most of them within a few weeks. It should say 5 minutes. It should say, dude, I'm fucking done, dude, it's over. Done, that's it, this is it. How many people said just one last hurrah, dude, I'm just gonna do this is my last bill, I'm done. Yeah. 5 minutes later, you're like, damn, dude, how am I gonna get some money? Mom, you're never gonna believe what happened. I need these work boots for this job, and once I get this job, I'm gonna pay you back, don't have a trip. Yeah. Oh, you want to take me to get the work boots? Well, see, the reason why I can't do that. How many people have the work boot conversation in here? Okay. All right. Mom loves you. That's true. For those who are unable to drink moderately, the question is how to stop altogether. We're assuming, of course, you want to stop. Reader has a desire. Whether such a person can quit upon a non-spiritual basis depends upon the extent which he's already lost the power to choose. This is powerless. Power to choose whether he will drink again. Many of us felt we had plenty of character. There was a tremendous urge to cease forever, yet we found it impossible. Underline the next sentence. So when you hear us say in meetings, cunning, baffling, and powerful, when we say baffling, this is what we mean. The baffling feature of addiction is the utter inability to leave it alone, no matter how great the necessity or the wish. I could wish it, I could see it every need of my life. I've got high crying because I don't want to do it anymore, but I can't not use. Right? That's the baffling part of it. I don't want to do it, but here I am doing it. I don't want to do it as I'm calling dope man. I don't want to do it as I'm walking to the liquor store, but here I am doing it. That's the baffling feature of addiction. How then should we help our readers determine to their own satisfaction whether they're one of us? The experiment of quitting for a period of time will be helpful, but we think we could render even a greater service to alcoholic sufferers, perhaps a medical fraternity. So we shall describe some of the mental states that precedes a relapse into drinking, because obviously that's the crux of the problem. Okay, so now everything in the book transitions. The steps transition into each other. The stories transition into each other, right? So now we're transitioning to it's a thinking problem. And the story is going to be about why it's a thinking problem. And on the next page, about 2 pages over, I'm going to point out where he went wrong, and we'll see if you guys can follow along with me on that. I know you can. What sort of thinking dominates an alcoholic who repeats time after time the desperate experiment of that first drink? Friends who have reasoned with him after a spree which has brought him to the point of divorce or bankruptcy are mystified when he walks back into the bar? Why does he? What is he thinking? So this is a thinking problem story. Our first example is a friend we shall call Jim. This man has a charming wife and family. He inherited a lucrative automobile agency. He has a commendable World War record. He's a good salesman. Everybody likes him. Intelligent man, normal so far as we can see, except for a nervous disposition. He did no drinking until he was 35. In a few years, he became so violent when high that he had to be committed to the asylum. On leaving the asylum, he came in contact with us. We told him what we knew about addiction, the answer we had found. He made a beginning. His family was reassembled. He began to work as a salesman for the business he lost through drinking. All went well for a time. Underline or circle the rest of that sentence. But he failed to enlarge his spiritual life. So there, my friends, is the problem. And I'm going to show you why, if we don't enlarge our spiritual life on a day-to-day basis and maintain our spirituality, prayer, meditation, identifying how we experience God in our lives and introducing those things in our lifestyle, then our spiritual life will not enlarge. And then what happens on the next page, I'll show you how he could have prevented it if he was spiritually fit. And we're going to go over that now. Okay. To his consternation, he found himself drunk a half a dozen times in rapid succession. On each of these occasions, we worked with him, reviewing carefully what had happened. He agreed he was a real alcoholic in a serious condition. He knew he faced another trip to the asylum if he kept on. Moreover, he would lose his family for whom he had deep affection. Okay, so at the top of this page, this is where it comes in. So on the top above where it says Alcoholics Anonymous, on that top part, I want you to write awareness. Remember, that's all we gain through working the steps is awareness. That's all you're gaining through all the different cognitive behavioral therapy, smart recovery, every group you take, all the steps you work, you're gaining awareness. And when you're aware, you're responsible. Through awareness, I can no longer fall victim. I believe that it's everybody else's fault. I know that the problems are of my own making. I start taking responsibility for my actions. Okay, so on the left of it, above the 36, I want you to write, driven by feelings, emotions, and thoughts. So we're driven by our thoughts and feelings. Before the program, I got a thinking problem and I don't know how to feel. Negative emotions, I want to get high. Drugs are the solution to my emotions. Positive emotions, I want to celebrate them. That's my MO, dude. Get it all back, burn it all down. Get it all back, burn it all down. Okay, so we have awareness, that's what we're gaining. And we're driven by our thoughts, feelings, and emotions. So I'm going to point every thought and feeling out and show you how we're driven by them. And I'm going to show you the part where he could have prevented the relapse if he had enlarged his spiritual life. Here we go. Yet he got drunk again. We asked him to tell you exactly how it happened. This is his story. I came to work on Tuesday morning. I remember, underline. I felt irritated. Negative emotion. Feeling that I had to be a salesman for concern I once owned. Underline, I once owned. Resentment. I had a few words with the boss. Underline, words with the boss, but nothing serious. So put a stop sign right there. So through awareness, what I'm gaining in recovery. If I know today, if I start my day off and I'm feeling irritated, I'm aware of that. Uh-oh, character defect. Uh-oh, right? I go to work, I'm living in resentments. They say they're the number one offender. They're fatal. Now I'm living in a resentment. Now I'm lashing out in words. Now I'm lashing out. Now I know I'm in hot water only if my spiritual life is enlarged. Right? Then what do? Oh shit, making amends, call my sponsor, talk about the way I feel, find someone to help, right? Prayer, meditation, 3rd step prayer, 7th step prayer, right? Resentment, step 4, what's my part in this? Are they spiritually sick? I can't destroy my chance of being helpful. Hit page 552 for a prayer. Pray for them for 2 weeks, even if they're only words and you just mean it. Even if you don't want it for them, they're only words, do it anyway, you'll come to find you mean it. Okay, now I got my tools, I'll apply my program. But if not, here we go. Then I thought to drive in a country to see one of my prospects for a car. On the way I felt, feeling hungry, so I stopped at a roadside place where they have a bar. Now I'm having lunch at a bar. I had no thought of drinking. I just thought I would get a sandwich. Also the thought that I might find a customer for a car at this place, which I was familiar feeling, for I've been going to it for years. I had eaten there many times during the months I was sober. Sat down at a table, ordered a sandwich, glass of milk, still no thought of drinking. Ordered a sandwich, thought to have another glass of milk. Suddenly the thought crossed my mind that if I were to put an ounce of whiskey in my milk, it couldn't hurt me on a full stomach. I ordered a whiskey, poured in my milk, vaguely sensed feeling. I was not being any too smart, but felt feeling reassured as I was taking the whiskey on the full stomach. The experiment went so well. I ordered another whiskey, poured in my milk. That didn't seem to bother me, so I tried another. So, as you can see, thoughts and feelings were driven by it. If I'm not spiritually fit, I'll think if I throw a little bit of milk in this thing, it ain't going to hurt me this time. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
I've been at soccer all day today, guys. I'm getting turned up with you guys right now. I can feel it. You guys with me? Giving new haircuts tonight. All right, my bad, brother. Okay, all right. Thus started one more journey to the asylum for Jim. Here was the threat of commitment, the loss of family and position, to say nothing of the intense mental, physical suffering which drinking always caused him. Remember, anything italicized in the book must be extremely important because the first edition they paid extra to have it italicized. Just saying, side note. He had much knowledge about himself as an alcoholic, yet all reasons for not drinking were easily pushed aside in the favor of the foolish idea that he could take whiskey if he only mixed it with milk. Whatever the precise definition of the word may be, we call it plain insanity. So now, like I said, everything transitions into the next part. So every time in the next 2 paragraphs, before we get down to the last paragraph, anything that has to do with insanity, circle it. This will keep you on track. Now you know where we're going. It's going to be a story about the insanity. Okay. Whatever the precise definition of the word, we call it plain insanity. How could such a lack of proportion of the ability to think straight be called anything else? You may think this is an extreme case. This is not too far-fetched, for this kind of thinking has been characterized in every single one of us. We've sometimes reflected more than Jim did upon the consequences, but there was always that curious mental phenomenon that parallel with our sound reasoning, there inevitably ran some insanely trivial excuse for taking that first drink. Our sound reasoning failed to hold us in check. The insane idea won out. The next day we'd be asking ourselves in all earnest and sincerity, how could it have happened? Right, again next to it, again. Damn, dude, again, dude, did it again. Right? Sometimes we wake up in the morning, we don't know what's going on. We gotta just feel our girl out, right? We don't remember what happened last night. We're like, hey, baby, good morning. She's like, good morning. You're like, yes, dude, we're good. Baby, good morning. What? They're like, oh no, dude, what happened? Again, here we are. All right. In some circumstances, we gone out deliberately to get drunk, feeling ourselves justified by nervousness, anger, worry, depression, jealousy, or the like. But even in this type of beginning, we're obliged to admit our justification for a spree was insanely insufficient in light of what always happened. We now see when we began to drink deliberately instead of casually, there was little serious effective thought during the period of premeditation of what our terrific consequences might be. So when I'm feeling negative emotions, dude, I don't even care about the consequences. I'm not asking for permission, I'm asking for forgiveness, right? And usually before I ask for forgiveness, they say, will the defendant please rise? No, just me? Okay, I know you are, brother. I know you are. It's good to see you again, man. All right. So now this next story is the insanity story, okay? So write insanity next to it. Our behavior is absurd and incomprehensible with respect to the first string is that of an individual with a passion, say, for jaywalking. He gets a thrill out of skipping in front of fast-moving vehicles. He enjoys himself for a few years in spite of friendly warnings. Up to this point, you will label him as a foolish chap having queer ideas of fun. Luck then deserts him. He is slightly injured several times in succession. You would expect him, if he were normal, to cut it out. Presently, he's hit again. This time has a fractured skull. Within a week after leaving the hospital, a fast-moving trolley car breaks his arm. He tells you he's decided to stop jaywalking for good, but in a few weeks, he breaks both legs. On through the years, his conduct continues, accompanied by continual promises to keep off the streets altogether. Finally, he can no longer work. His wife gets a divorce. He's held up to ridicule. He tries every known means to get the jaywalking idea out of his head. He shuts himself up in an asylum, hoping to mend his ways. But the day he comes out, he races in front of a fire engine, breaks his back. Such a man would be crazy, wouldn't he? Underline the next 2 sentences of that top paragraph. The next paragraph. You may think our illustration is too ridiculous, but is it? We who have been through the ringer must admit if we substituted alcoholism or addiction for jaywalking, the illustration would fit us exactly. So the first time you're reading it, if you're anything like me, you're like, this dumb this dude is stupid. Come on, brother. Stay off the streets, player. Jaywalking? Damn, jaywalking? Right? But that's the whole point, right? That's what the book wants us to do, is think that this jaywalker's a nutbag. He's insane. This dude is nuts. And then they hit us with the 1-2. Ba-boom. Right? You're like, oh, shit. Okay, you got me. All right, you got me, brother. All right. However intelligent we may have been in other respects, where alcohol has been involved, we've been strangely insane. Strong language, but isn't it true? This next paragraph, I'd like to kind of do it in like a little bit of an I statement. I've had sponsees, when we get to this point, if they feel like this is them, then there's no point in me even going any further with them. Yeah, what you tell me is true, but that shit doesn't fully apply to me. I admit I got some of the symptoms, but I haven't gone to the extremes you guys have, nor am I likely to, for I understand myself so well after what you told me ain't gonna happen to me again. And I haven't lost everything worthwhile in life through drinking. Certainly don't intend to. Thanks for the information. So if you feel like that's you, brother, well then, here's my number. Call me when you're ready. That's it. Right? If I could give everyone recovery, I'd be standing over there at that Arco right down the street like Oprah. You get recovery, and you get. I'd be blessing everyone with recovery, and then I go to QT, right? All day long, dude. But it don't work that way, right? All right. That may be true for certain non-alcoholic people, though drinking foolishly and heavily at the present time are able to stop or moderate because their brains and bodies haven't been damaged as ours were. But the actual potential alcoholic is hardly an exception. He'll be absolutely unable to stop drinking on the basis of circle self-knowledge. So this next story is going to be about self-knowledge. This is self-knowledge. Easiest way I could explain this to you guys, what self-knowledge means. Self-knowledge is this. I go to the doctor. I'm not feeling so well. Doctor says, hey Jay, you got cancer, brother. Stage 1, bro. You can treat this thing. If you don't, you're going to go to 2, 3, and 4, and it's going to kill you if you don't treat it. And I look at the doctor and say, gracias, man. Thank you, dude. Fucking now I know, dude. Cool, I know now. But I don't treat it, right? If I'm not treating this thing, I'm not putting the action steps behind it, I will never experience a miracle in my life. I will never remove the obsession to change the way I feel. That will never happen, dude. I have to treat this thing. There's got to be action steps that are associated with it, but that's what self-knowledge is. Just knowing you ain't going to get the job done, right? I went to Crossroads Arcadia, in 2012, did the 16-day right track, but it was 16 days over there. I went over there, they told me some stuff, I faked the funk to step 3, right? And I was like, I went to the telemarketing spot down the street, made a $2,000 check, boned out broad daylight. Didn't pay him a dime. Didn't even try to go in the middle of the night, nothing. Shaking hands, kissing babies on the way out. Hey, thanks guys, dude. Fucking appreciate you, dude. Thank you for all the information. I'm good now, right? Didn't last very long. That's self-knowledge. Okay, so here's a story about self-knowledge. Fred is a partner at a well-known accounting firm. His income is good, he has a fine home. Is happily married to the father of promising children of college age. He has so attractive a personality, he makes friends with everyone. To all appearances, Fred is a stable, well-balanced individual, yet he's an alcoholic. We first saw Fred about a year ago in the hospital. We'd gone to recover from the bad case of the jitters. It was his first experience of this kind. He was much ashamed of it. Far from admitting he was an alcoholic, he told himself he came to the hospital to rest his nerves. The doctor intimated strongly he might be worse than he realized. For a few days he was depressed about his condition. He made up his mind to quit drinking altogether. It never occurred to him, though, that perhaps he could not do so in spite of his character and standing. Fred would not accept or believe himself as an alcoholic, much less accept a spiritual remedy for our problem. Don't forget, the main object of this book is to enable you to find a power greater in yourself, which will solve your problem. That means we're going to talk about God. That's what it says. All right. We told him what we knew about alcoholism. He was interested, conceded he had some of the symptoms, but it was a long way from admitting he could do nothing about it himself. He was positive that his humiliating experience plus the knowledge he had acquired would keep him sober for the rest of his life. Self-knowledge would fix it. We heard no more from Fred for a while. One day we were told he was back in the hospital. This time he was quite shaky. He soon indicated he was anxious to see us. The story he told is most instructive, for here was a chap absolutely convinced he had to stop drinking, who had no excuse for drinking, who exhibited splendid judgment, determination, and all his other concerns, yet was flat on his back nevertheless. Let him tell you about it. I was much impressed with what you fellows said about alcoholism. I frankly did not believe it would be possible for me to drink again. I rather appreciated your ideas about the subtle insanity that precedes that first drink, but I was confident it could not happen to me after what I had learned. I reason I was not so far advanced as most of you fellows. I've been unusually successful in licking my other personal problems, but I would therefore be successful where you men failed. I felt I had every right to be self-confident. That would only be a matter of exercising my willpower and keeping on guard. In this frame of mind, I went about my business for a time all was well. I had no trouble refusing drinks. I began to wonder if I had not been making too hard work of a simple matter. One day I went to Washington to present some accounting evidence to a government bureau. I've been out of town before this particular dry spell, so there was nothing new about that. Bracket the rest of this paragraph and put a star. This is the whole point of the whole story right here. Self-knowledge. Physically, I felt fine. Neither did I have any pressing problems or worries. My business came off well. I was pleased. I knew my partners would be too. It was the end of a perfect day. Not a cloud on the horizon. So, self-knowledge. I know I got a problem. I know I'm an alcoholic. I know once the doctor told me I was in the hospital recovering from a bad case of the jitters. Alcoholics Anonymous showed up. Doctor, how many people ever woke up in the hospital and had some AA pamphlets next to them? Just me? Oh, my bad. All right. Okay. So, this is the point though, right here. Felt fine, dude. I feel good. I have no problems. I don't have a problem in the world. I don't even have a worry in the world. My business is good. My partners are happy. Like, dude, when was the last time you said today was a perfect day? That's a pretty damn good day, right? Yet, he ends up relapsing. So even in a perfect day, the self-knowledge ain't gonna get the job done. That's the point. So what ends up happening? Well, he goes to the hospital, went to the hotel, leisurely dressed for dinner. As I crossed this threshold, the dining room, suddenly the thought came into my mind, it'd be nice to have a couple cocktails with dinner. That was all, nothing more. I ordered a cocktail at my meal. Then I ordered another cocktail. After dinner, I decided to take a walk. When I returned to the hotel, it struck me a highball. Who knows what a highball is? What is it?
It's a glass of whiskey, usually with a ball of ice in the middle of it.
Okay.
Great.
With ginger ale, brother.
Ginger.
And I say,
just drink the whiskey.
yeah, well, yeah, sure. I say that because it's going to say something about ginger ale. So if we make the correlation, then we know why the ginger ale comment comes in. So here it is. I ordered a highball before going to bed, so I stepped in the bar, had one. I remember having several more that night, plenty the next morning. I have a shadowy recollection of being in an airplane bound for New York and finding a friendly taxi cab driver at the landing field instead of my wife. The driver escorted me about for several days. I know a little of where I went and what I said and did. Hey, just drive, brother. Then came to the hospital with unbearable mental, physical suffering. As soon as I regained my ability to think, I went carefully over the evening in Washington. Not only had I been off guard, I made no fight whatever against that first drink. This time I had not thought of the consequences at all. I commenced to drink as carelessly though the cocktails were ginger ale. There it is. Okay, so there's one more page. We'll end right on time. So remember, I can't stress to you guys enough, we're never talking about drugs and alcohol with this book. We're talking about the alcoholic mentality. And I'm going to prove my point. It's going to say it in 3 different ways. I want you to circle alcoholic mentality, mind of an alcoholic. It's the alcoholic mentality. The alcoholic mentality that we have is the character defects: lying, cheating, manipulating, stealing, selfishness, ego, self-centeredness, right? That's my problem, the alcoholic mentality. And because I live in those character defects for so long, what ends up happening is those character defects become comfortable. Character assets are uncomfortable. A good description of being a recovered alcoholic: sure, the mental obsession to want to change the way I feel has been removed. I'm not in the midst of a physical craving. Yeah, that's recovered. But a good way to describe recovered as well is when character defects don't feel so comfortable anymore. Today, if I lie to someone, if I harm somebody, if I miss a commitment, dude, I don't like the way that shit feels, right? Don't like it. That shows me that what? Sanity has returned. Okay. I now remember what my alcoholic friends had told me, how they prophesized if I had an alcoholic mind, the time and place would come, I would drink again. They said that though I did raise a defense, it will one day give way before some trivial reason for having a drink. Well, just that did happen, and for more, what I learned about addiction or alcoholism did not occur to me at all. I knew from that moment I had an alcoholic mind. I saw that willpower and self-knowledge would not help me in those strange mental blank spots. I had never been able to understand people who said that a problem had them hopelessly defeated. I knew then it was a crushing blow. 2 of Alcoholics Anonymous members came to see me. They grinned. They showed up at the hospital like, hey, what's up, brother? Oh, you're back. Thought you knew everything, player. Right? Which I didn't like so much. Then they asked me if I thought myself an alcoholic, if I were really licked. Hey, you had enough? You willing to go to any lengths? Are you ready? They piled on me heaps of evidence to the effect that an alcoholic mentality, such as I exhibited in Washington, was a hopeless condition. They cited their cases out of their experience by the dozen. This process snuffed out the last conviction that I could do the job myself. They outlined the spiritual program of action that 100 have followed successfully. Though I had only been a nominal churchman, their proposals were not intellectually hard to swallow. But the program of action, entirely sensible, was pretty drastic and meant I would have to throw several lifelong conceptions out the window. Got to change everything right there. Got to change. You know, you hate when you, hey brother, there's one thing you got to change, that's everything. And it seems overwhelming, right? I got to change everything. Well, let's start with the most pressing problems, like honesty. Like, let's start there. That's the principle associated with step 1. So let's start there. Let's work on being honest. Then we'll start changing everything else. And I can tell you right now, just from the honesty aspect, that's going to solve a lot of other problems just by focusing on that one. Let's start there, brother. All right. That was not easy, but the moment I made up my mind to go through the process, I had the curious feeling that my alcohol condition was relieved. In fact, it proved to be. Quite as important was the discovery underlined that spiritual principles would solve all my problems. Not some of them, not a couple of them, all my problems. When I live my higher power's will, the easiest way I can explain God's will is to have gratitude, be of service, be positive, and live in character assets. That's God's will. My will is selfishness, ego, character defects, and negativity. If I want to figure out whose will I'm living in, well, where do my actions fit? It's that simple. I look at my recovery as like 2 different engines, right? I got 2 engines in this car. This is my addiction, this is my recovery. My addiction needs character defects, it needs negativity, it needs horrible relationships, it needs selfishness, it needs self-centeredness, and I'll throw a little gas in that tank every day, because I'm human, I'm not perfect. But my recovery needs some things: prayer, meditation, meaningful relationships, service work, selflessness, right? It needs honesty, it needs forgiveness, it needs tolerance, it needs patience, it needs understanding, it needs all those things. Keeping my commitments, being a part of, being humble, teachable, coachable. I'll gas that thing up. So at the end of the night, I got to make sure I got more gas in this one. I have since been brought into an infinite way of living, more satisfying and I hope more useful than the life I lived before. My old manner of life was by no means a bad one, but I would not exchange its best moments for the worst ones I have now. I wouldn't go back to it even if I could. I wouldn't trade my best moment in addiction. Sure, there were some fun times, but the point is to when you remember your addiction, you remember that last run and the pain from it. So now when I think about addiction, I remember what that pain felt like. The last 4 years and some change, dude, I don't have power of vocabulary. I don't have bad days. I have learning days. Power of vocabulary. I'm not sick. I'm cleansing, brother. Cleansing. Power of vocabulary, very important. We'll talk about that another day, another time. Okay. I would not go back to it even if I could. Fred's story speaks for itself. We hope it strikes home to thousands like him. He felt only the first nip of the ringer. Underline, triple star this. Most alcoholics have to be pretty badly mangled to commence to solve their problems. Last resort, defeated, gift of pain and desperation, wave that white flag, dude, I'm good. Misery threshold, right? But I look and I think about my story and I think about all the times when it was so painful. Dude, I wanted to do something different, but the problem is I didn't go full throttle in it. And what ended up happening was I got relief, not recovery, but I mistook that relief for recovery. We got to find recovery. That's what we're here to do. We're here to recover from this thing. Many doctors and psychiatrists agree with our conclusions. One of these men, staff member, world-renowned hospital, recently made this statement to some of us: what you say about the general hopelessness of the average alcoholic's plight, in my opinion, correct. As the two of you men whose stories I've heard, there is no doubt in my mind you were 100% hopeless apart from divine help. Had you offered yourself as patients at this hospital, I would not have taken you because people like you are too heartbreaking. Though not a religious person, I have a profound respect for the spiritual approach. In such cases as yours, for most cases, there's virtually no other solution. This paragraph is the transition into step 2. Once more, the alcoholic at certain times has no effective mental defense against that first drink, except in a few rare cases. Neither he nor any other human being can provide such a defense. His defense must come from his higher power. That, my friends, is More About Alcoholism, step 1.
Thank you.
That was fun. Okay, so before we go, I know we're a couple minutes late, but I want to at least give you guys the opportunity to really look and understand, really to fully conceive your innermost self. In my opinion, in order to do that, when I write something down, it comes from here and it comes from here. I see it black and white and I share it with another man. It takes the power out of it. It also brings me to reality. So if you guys want to write this down, if anyone wants to write this down, that's up to you. This is the homework I would give you guys. First thing I'd ask you to do is define powerless in your own words and define unmanageability in your own words. Remember, I gave you the one tip: powerless internal, unmanageable is external. Define in your own words. There's no right or wrong way to do it. Next thing I ask you to do is give me 5 experiences of powerless and 5 experiences of being unmanageable in your life. If you want to go more than 5, then let's let the good times roll. Okay? The third thing I'd ask you to do is write, it could be a page, 15 pages, 2 cents. 2 sentences. All your life could ever be in recovery, and all your life could ever be in addiction. Because for guys like us, there is no gray area anymore. I either choose to live in addiction or I choose to live in recovery. Either I'm working on a relapse or I'm working on recovery. I got 2 options. Get busy living or get busy dying. Today it shows me that you guys want to live today, right? So let's keep that going outside this 1-hour meeting, all right? And it's a good indicator when I get through my sponsees through step 12, when we go back to step 1 and we look at all our life. When I look at my step 1 homework from 4 years ago, right, and I see what I wrote at that time, all my life could ever be in recovery, what I find is I was completely lowballing myself. There is so much more out there for me, but I couldn't see it yet. Today I see it, right? And so I have the ability to continue to further, because constant, never-ending growth is what we're driving at. So I'd ask you guys, if you guys want to do that in your own time, if I was working with you guys, that's what I would ask you. I appreciate everyone being here tonight. It's always a pleasure to see every one of you guys, and I love seeing familiar faces because that means you're staying, you're finding recovery, you're putting the footwork in, and you're still here.